All right, welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. We begin some news from the White House, where Vice President J.D. Vance today held a roundtable discussion highlighting the immense fraud his task force is discovering and rooting out, identifying billions of dollars being stolen from you, me, and the rest of the American taxpayers. More on this in just a bit with Congressman James Comer. Plus, South Carolina Republicans taking a page out of the Indiana playbook, defying Trump and blocking a redistricting measure that would have redrawn Jim Clyburn's district and helped Republicans. The vote failed 24-20 with 12 Republican state senators joining the Democrats. I love the smell of good primaries in the morning. That's only 2 weeks away. And the communist power grab officially on in New York City.
For buildings that have suffered chronic neglect, we will work to transfer ownership to responsible stewards.
Ma'am Danny will decide what is neglect, and those responsible stewards will be community land trusts and nonprofits that he probably controls. Oh, and sometimes they're just going to give them over to the tenants. That's actually the definition of socialism and communism, but whatever. But first, seriously, more ICE protesters blocking roads. You just got to suplex a few of them, and the rest will just go away. Let's do this. Really? I mean, really? We're doing this again? I thought these people had moved on from protesting outside of ICE facilities to like the nearest coloring book factory. But after realizing that it didn't change Trump's immigration enforcement strategy at all, and if you learned anything from Renee Good, they were worried about getting shot. But apparently not. Today, and yesterday, actually started last night in New Jersey, a bunch of jobless non-assets to society gathered outside the same ICE facility that Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, if you remember her, was arrested at for assaulting an ICE officer. She's still pending with that. I don't understand why this is allowed to continue on federal property, but here we are. The new lib governor over there got denied entry, but was just happy to stand out with some of the other Democrats while they gave a super important press conference about how these are just people, not criminals.
The reality is that no one in there has a criminal record. No one in there should be held in a privately run detention center. These are people who are mothers, fathers, 18-year-olds.
Mothers, fathers, 18-year-olds, because none of them ever commit crimes. They're breaking the law to be here, hence why they're locked up in the ICE facility. That is their criminal record, by the way. Maybe besides that, they don't have a criminal record, even though many of them probably do, and Democrats just lie about that because they lie about everything. These Democrats, they were trying to gain access to this facility to inspect it based on these baseless claims. They had no reason to believe this, but that the conditions were inhumane and that all these people were inside were on hunger strikes. Look, as far as the hunger strikes, if they want to not eat, that's on them. I don't really care. It saves us some taxpayer money, I guess. But the inhumane conditions is a complete farce. Half of the people in the ICE clink are probably getting better meals and probably getting better health care than they did before they were picked up. And you would think congressmen and governors would know all this since they make or sign into law most of these things. See, if they were other types of criminals, they would just be in a regular jail. Being in an ICE detention facility means that they were, in fact, breaking immigrations and customs laws, the first two letters of ICE. DHS Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen pretty much went off on this. He said, quote, "This is nothing more than a political stunt by New Jersey sanctuary politicians for fundraising clicks. There is no hunger strike at Delaney Hall," that's the ICE facility. "There are no subprime conditions." I tend to believe him a little bit more. But going to these things has become some sort of I don't know, they get like a hall monitor merit badge on their banner for Democrats now. They go to these things with a bunch of these, non-showered degenerates at these protests. And the U.S. Senator Andy Kim, he's the junior senator from New Jersey, was telling, basically it was a war story. I got pepper sprayed. The man did not waste a minute to virtue signal on this one. He gave an interview after last night and said, ICE officials told me that they were going to push through the crowd with their vehicle, and they wanted some to get out of their vehicles out of there. I tried to arrange a situation where people would not get hurt, where there wouldn't be a confrontation. Unfortunately, ICE just continued on. Well, maybe that's because they were in the road, Kim. Where cars go. He went on, I immediately saw people getting tackled and brought to the ground. Yes, that's the nature of arresting people impeding on federal agents. But Kim went on to say, ICE started pushing through with their vehicles. I tried to do whatever I could. Well, you know what, Kim? Let's just give you the Medal of Honor and a Purple Heart for being the principal hall monitor. But also DHS is directly refuting your story, Kim, saying, quote, no individuals were directly struck by pepper ball projectiles. I mean, I know, hard to believe that a politician would lie, especially a Democrat, but United States senators should be in D.C. doing something, like literally anything. I know John Thune sent everybody home so he wouldn't have to vote on the Save America Act, but I'm sure you could find actual voting constituents that need your help with something in New Jersey over people who are not citizens, who are here illegally. That's why they're in jail. It's ironically why they're in the ICE facility in the first place. Why does it always seem that these Democrats care more about illegals than they do about, I don't know, pick another class, veterans or taxpayers for that matter? A ton of these same libs went to El Salvador to stay in like 5-star hotels to see the MS-13 gangbanger member, Brego Garcia, or whatever his name was. I mean, I'm just wondering how many of these Democrats bothered to go see our troops stationed overseas. I mean, from my research, I can give you a hint. It was less than the Maryland man. But showing up to an ICE facility that accomplishes nothing for them, by the way, except for forwarding some weird fundraising election campaign somehow. I don't know. I don't know what they're driving at here. But what I also found crazy was the same people that hate Trump's wall, they're saying, oh, walls don't work. They were actually digging up bricks and using water-filled barriers to build a wall using federal property to stop ICE traffic. Then under some like weird lapse of judgment, I hope this person's fired today, but somebody at that facility allowed the rioters to then go in and inspect the vehicles that were leaving because the protesters just declared that they didn't want any detainees being transferred tonight.
Lock it arms. Lock it arms. Somebody needs to record. We need to record in case there's violence. We want to see. Absolutely. Please, let's see. Come on, I know, but we want to just make sure. Right? Don't go in there, don't go in there. Okay. Okay. It's good, it's good, it's good. Okay. Right. Make sure to let him go. Come on, sir. Okay. Oh, let me hold on. It's good.
Who do you think you are? I mean, this is beyond ridiculous that these whiny little libs and these hippies are being allowed to inspect federal vehicles. I mean, let's just play this in reverse here. I'm just going to flip the script. Imagine, I don't know, a bunch of MAGA people, red hats on. We went out and surrounded an abortion clinic and started, I don't know, inspecting vehicles to see if there's any pregnant women in there going into them. And then we started sitting in the middle of the road blocking it. I would bet you my salary that some lib would just run me over. They'd probably not get charged in a deep blue state. They would probably actually charge me as the MAGA person. How do I know? Well, it's weird because a man was actually arrested for just silently praying outside an abortion clinic. No bullhorn, no antagonizing, no nothing. He was arrested. But these degenerates can grab an ICE agent by the collar. I mean, I don't know, get bigger tires on your trucks, ICE? I'm 100% behind a law, like they have in Florida, that if you block traffic on a road, you should be able to run these people over. Not sorry about that. These people are degenerate agitators. Look, you yell at a cop or in a federal agent's face with a megaphone, you should go to jail for assault. Why do we, I don't even know why we entertain this. It's so crazy that these people look like a bunch of hippies, some pro-Palestinian crunchy version of whatever they got going on. The same types of people that protested the Dakota pipeline or whatever. These people leave more trash than anybody else. ICE had to bring in a dumpster to haul out all their junk. They had pallets and makeshift barriers and bedding and food and trash. They had to bring in a whole dumpster to clean it up. After a day, this is condoned all over the country. And as a taxpayer, I want arrests. I want to see felony arrests. These people keep pushing the boundaries that if a conservative did that, they'd be buried under the jail, literally locked up. They locked up peaceful protesters from January 6th for years, some without trial. I wasn't allowed to speak during COVID at a school board meeting because they didn't like what I was saying. I was threatened with arrest for breach of peace while speaking in my scheduled allotted 2-minute time slot. Yep, these people can scream it with bullhorns into the face of a cop. They're going to keep doing this until they realize that pavement doesn't taste too good. Former Chief Patrol Agent, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol Protection, and the guy who used to hold these riders accountable, Greg Bovino. Sir, I would love to see what happened if you were there.
Carl, it's good to see you, and thanks for having me tonight. You know, where's the leadership? Where's the leadership at that Delaney facility? What I see there is maybe a dearth of leadership, and you mentioned agitators, rioters, tasting pavement. You know, that situation could be cleaned up in mere minutes. What I see there is, what is that, a Democrat fundraising campaign there at Delaney? It's absolutely a dystopian novel. It's like federal agents in an escape room. They have to escape from a federal facility or escape into the federal facility. I've never seen anything like it, but we need to do something and do something quick.
Yeah, you know, what's crazy is, thankfully, Mark Wayne Mullen, I really like this guy. I think I've known him for quite some time. I think he's doing a really good job thus far. He's actually directing DHS directing ICE to ramp up cases against the actual immigration lawyers who are accused, and they can find filing false asylum claims on behalf of some of these people, because we know that's a huge problem. Is this going to be easy to pick up and target these people?
Yeah, if we've got motivated prosecutors, if we've got motivated law enforcement officers that are ready to investigate not only those false asylum claims, but these organized groups like you see outside the Delaney facility, that's a fantastic tactic. But we also, Carl, need to continue to look at total spectrum immigration enforcement. That's everything. That's those prosecutions, that's mass deportations, that's everything rolled up into one. And when you do that, you really have an effect on both the rioters and agitators as well as the illegal aliens. Yeah. It's all part and parcel of the same thing.
Yeah, but they're still going back to, you know, the kids in cages and mistreatment. And, like, this has been a farce from day one, okay? Because I remember, I'm old enough to remember, that, you know, when Trump came onto the scene and he was first president in 2016, they're like, Donald Trump is throwing kids in cages. But it turns out that that's not the case, and that Obama built those cages and Trump just continued the same policy.
Well, exactly. And actually, President Trump in both terms was much more humane to illegal aliens, both crossing the border and in the interior, than Hussein Obama was during his 8-year term. Look at all the individuals that died under Hussein Obama and then Joe Biden. They needed body bags in Texas. They ran out of body bags to put bodies in. You didn't see that under Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So much more humane, and you know that's always been a farce. Ocasio-Cortez started that there at that El Paso facility when she accused the Border Patrol of pushing their heads in toilet water. Absolute craziness. But you know, you come to expect that from the fringe left, and you know they're after that soundbite. And then they're off to the next lying soundbite that they can find.
Right, but it's come to a point now where, you know, every time I've run into you out in the field, your people have to cover their faces for the protection of their own families. I mean, what the heck has this come to?
You're right. They'll come after you. They'll come after your families. They'll come after anything that they think will have an effect on either you personally, professionally, or the organization. And we know that. That's why, obviously, we have face coverings and that type of thing. But, you know, I was just accosted in a gym here just a few days ago by some out-of-control lunatic that happened to recognize me. Yeah. And, you know, our agents know that. Hey, we want to protect our agents, and those face coverings do that. More power to them.
Yeah. Well, look, Greg, if you ever want something to go to the gym with you and confront that guy, call me. We appreciate it, Greg.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, coming up, the Democrats spent Memorial Day politicizing deaths. But the stats don't lie. Only the Democrats do. We break down their selective outrage on black deaths later in the show. But first, it's going down in Texas for the GOP Senate runoff between John Cornyn and Ken Paxton. Polls close in less than 2 hours. And I have my bet on who it's going to be. The man himself, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, going to join me live next.
People can't stop talking about Rob Schmidt.
I trust the news from Robert Schmidt every single day.
They say he's no BS.
No BS. No liberal crap.
He hates liars.
The honesty and up-to-date news and none of the fake news.
He tells it better than anyone.
Everything is straight, legit, real news.
He's your voice.
Rob Schmidt, 7 p.m. Wouldn't miss it.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.
I love Newsmax.
They tell you to optimize, to hack. But what if you were never broken? Armor Colostrum, the first food of life, reawakens your innate brilliance. 400 nutrients, 4 seconds, 1 daily revival.
What if you're sick at home or traveling and can't get medical help or prescriptions? Doctors say a medical emergency kit is the answer. Joining me is Dr. Drew.
Thank you. And yes, these kits put you in charge of your health. They come with physician-prescribed medication to treat multiple common and some serious issues as well.
What are some examples?
Sure. Generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other essential antibiotics and antivirals that treat flu, pneumonia, strep, ear infections, sinus infections, urinary tract infections, and more.
So it is like urgent care and a pharmacy at home?
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
How do you know what medicines to take?
You just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Sound advice. Order online in minutes at the website below and save $45. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
My paycheck was just deposited into my Greenlight account.
Greenlight is so convenient. You know, we had to use a vacuum tube.
Where is it going?
Bring your family into the financial future.
Less than 2 hours from the polls closing in Texas, watching some key midterm races here tonight. The main event, the high-stakes Republican Senate runoff between 4-term U.S. Senator Thorne and Trump's side John Cornyn and Trump-endorsed Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton to decide who's going to be running against the radical low-T Talafrico in November. The latest poll, before polls opened, this morning, obviously, had Paxton almost 10 points ahead. And I know we played this for you last night, but I just have to bring it back. An amazing ad from a group supporting Paxton's campaign with just Talarico's words. I give you low T.
The Democrats have a weird candidate.
God is non-binary. There are many more than 2 biological sexes. In fact, there are 6. It is now existential that we try to reduce our meat consumption.
Texas Attorney General and Senate candidate Ken Paxton. Banning meat in Texas, that'll win.
Well, I don't think we've ever had a Texas senator since 1845 when we went into the Union that didn't like Texas barbecue. So I don't think Texas is going to go for this.
Yeah. So let's get to this primary, all right? John Cornyn today warning Texas that if you win, this is his sales pitch, not that he's any better, but that if you win, that you can't beat Talarico and it's going to screw up a bunch of down ballot things. And I'm like, okay, what do you say?
If you have nothing to run on, which he has in 42 years, he doesn't have any accomplishments that he can tout. All he has is siding with Joe Biden on restricting Second Amendment rights and fighting Trump on the border wall for over a decade. So what he says is he makes up this idea that I can't win a general election, and yet I've won 3 straight general elections. He says he won his last by 10. I won my last by 10. There's no polling that suggests that he does any better than me. As a matter of fact, some polling suggests I do better than him. So this is just a made-up talking point that they've spent $150 million putting out there, and it's just false.
Oh, $150 million in a prime. That is crazy to me. Okay. But like your bona fides, look, as Attorney General, you filed like 100 and something lawsuits, most of them against the Biden-Harris administration, simply many were just to secure your own border that they were supposed to do in the first place. You are 100% aligned with, I think, 99% of the Republican Party.
No, there's no doubt about it. And that's the problem here. This guy has represented Mitch McConnell and the establishment in Washington. He doesn't represent Texas views. And that's why he hasn't stood behind Trump. He didn't stand behind him in his last election. He said his time had passed. In 2016, he said that he was an albatross around the Republicans' necks. Guess what he's saying about me? The exact same words. This guy has never stood with the president until he needed to during the primary, and he's never stood with Texans.
Yeah. So Trump comes in a couple weeks ago and endorses you. Just between you and I, like, what was that phone call like?
Oh, you can never explain what a call with the president's like. It's always what I always tell people is whenever I'm with Donald Trump, good things happen for Texas, good things happen for the country, and good things happen for me.
Yeah, I mean, he's out there right now saying on Truth Social, Texas vote Ken Paxton, our country's best attorney general. I mean, pretty high praise.
You know what? I have a lot of respect for him. I have supported him because I believe in what he's done for the country. I continue to support him. I will be out there pushing the Save America Act, which John Cornyn has not done.
Yeah.
He's hidden behind the Senate filibuster, and they went on vacation for a couple of weeks, as you already noted. Instead of dealing with this issue, it's just gone away, and it's pretty sad because it's Trump's number one issue. Yeah. It's my number one issue. You know why? Because this is important for saving the country, and John Cornyn just doesn't care about it.
Yeah. So what's your prediction of you versus Low T down there in Texas? How's that turn out?
I mean, you've heard you ran a small taste of the clip. I mean, the views that he holds would be progressive in California. When we highlight his views to Texans, I mean, I don't see how he possibly wins in Texas once people realize the guy is as liberal as they come and does not belong on a ballot in Texas. Yeah. He belongs on a ballot in California.
I'd say he's to the left of a lot of people I have here in Connecticut, which is super far left. Mr. Attorney General Ken Paxton, best of luck, sir. We'll have you on soon.
Please get out and vote before 7 o'clock.
There you go. 2 hours, hour and 20 minutes or something.
Ish.
Yeah, exactly. All right, another case of foreigners fleecing the American people. Take a listen to their latest scheme.
Have My Baby in Miami. That's the name of an actual company that is facilitating birth tourism into the United States, where foreigners come in on visas, have children, then leave so that their children can remain American citizens. That's a problem. The American people are sick of it, and my task force on the House Oversight Committee is going after these companies.
That's a real thing. Right there on their website, they provide a step-by-step on how to fly to the United States, have your baby here, and fly back home so their kid can just become a citizen. They literally say it on their website. Have my baby in Miami. It was created by a medical service that, in addition to medical excellence, offered complete support with logistics and guidance and educational workshop, cultural support. Now, the dream of having your child in the United States is closer to a reality than you ever imagined. That's what it says on their website. Over 2,000 foreigners actually have paid to fly to America and basically buy their citizenship for their child. The Oversight Committee says that they're going to go after them, and this isn't the only one. Kentucky Congressman and Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, sir, this is the birthright citizenship test that we're trying to get rid of.
Exactly, and I think the work that Brendan Gill's going to do on our new task force on the Oversight Committee is going to highlight this, and this is going to give credibility to what President Trump's wanting to do to end birthright citizenship. We have baby farms in several cities in the United States. This has been going on for decades, and I'll be honest, I didn't know the extent of it until Peter Schweitzer wrote a book specifically about this very recently. And now that we started looking into it, I mean, it's unbelievable. We're talking about thousands of babies have been born. And this leads to more welfare. This leads to a backdoor entry into illegals coming in, taking advantage of a loophole to become citizens. Many of these people, I would say most of these people are from China. Do we want Chinese people taking over, the United States? I mean, this is a way in for a lot of people that would never be granted citizenship. So this is a huge problem, and I think it's bigger than any of us ever realized. And the more that Brendan Gill talked about in the last few days, the more stories have come out, and I'm just blown away by how big a problem this is.
Yeah. Congressman, I got to ask you something else. We had you on a couple weeks ago, and you were working on the list of the people on that slush fund, the $17 million, okay? You dumped some names out there. They said that they, lost all the records before, 2003 or something like that. But there hasn't been $17 million worth of people exposed yet. Do you have any updates on that? And is anybody that you found out still in Congress?
No one's still in Congress. There were a lot of people that were chiefs of staff for members of Congress that got nailed. So as far as actual members of Congress, I don't think there were as many as a lot of people had speculated, but there was about 4 Democrats and 5 Republicans, I think, or maybe 5 Republicans, 4 Democrats. So it was about an even number. And but it's still, it's something that the American people needed to know. We worked very hard to get that slush fund. We've made I think some of the names public. I don't know if all of the names. We turned it over to Nancy Mace. Mace was the one that was spearheading this. Mace and Luna. I don't know if they named off all the names, but it wasn't as many as they had initially claimed. The initial reports where it was 100 million. 17 million is too much. Everybody that's ever been paid tax dollars, from a bad behavior from a congressman, that member of Congress needs to be exposed. So that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, can we claw that money back, sir?
Probably not. But I think that the members, some of these members are still alive. They're just not in Congress because one of them denied it when his name got leaked out. So they need to have to answer to the American people because that's taxpayer dollars. I don't think anybody in America wants their tax dollars going to pay out for a member of Congress's bad behavior.
Or his chief of staff. Real quick, these iPads in California, I got about 30 seconds left. These iPads in California for inmates, turns out they're like texting underage people and doing weird stuff on the internet. I mean, how is this happening?
Well, it's not supposed to happen. That's not where federal taxpayer dollars are supposed to go. But in a consistent pattern we're seeing with Gavin Newsom in the state of California, they use federal tax dollars in any way they seem fit, appropriate. And I don't think anyone would want their taxpayer dollars going for luxury items for inmates. Inmates aren't supposed to be communicating or harassing people outside of the prison walls. That's what they were doing with these tablets. Public school kids are going without things like those tablets. But in California, they're giving them to prisoners. We're trying to cut that money off and see if anyone can be held accountable. If you, at the end of the day, if you can cut the money off, that's a pretty big win in Washington, D.C. with the way money goes out the door.
I don't like to give Great Britain any credit, but putting them all in a penal colony of Australia, maybe. Congressman James Comer, we appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Coming up, Colorado thought banning too many bullets was a flex. Now Trump's DOJ about to smack him down in court over this unconstitutional gun grab. Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Harmeet Dhillon, going to join me for 2A Tuesday next.
Newsmax.
Shoots it straight. No talking down to me.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think. Don't tell me how to think.
I trust Newsmax. Newsmax.
They don't tell me how to think. They let me decide.
Real news for real people.
Here's Chris Cunahan with the Leaf Filter Gutter Report.
From blizzards to downpours to windstorms or heat waves, no matter where you live, Leaf Filter keeps your gutters clog-free year-round. Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
This isn't your average pill. This is Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks is a fast-acting solution because it dissolves under your tongue.
Rose Sparks.
Guys, get started today.
Connect with a provider to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you.
Like a relentless weed, moderate to severe Crohn's disease symptoms can keep coming back. Break away to what's possible with Tremfya. Tremfya can help with remission at 12 weeks, 1 year, and 2 years. Some had visible repair of their intestinal lining. Serious allergic reactions, increased risk of infections or lower ability to fight them, and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or need a vaccine. Break away with Tremfya. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today.
Hey, I'm Dr. Drupinski. I've been looking at the aging process for a long time. Fatty 15 actually slows it down. Fatty 15 comes out of Navy dolphin research. Without the C15, our cells become fragile and age and oxidize. This pushes that back. That's why I take Fatty 15.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
My earwax buildup was frustrating. Then I tried new Lipo Earwax Cleanser. The revolutionary formula dissolves earwax 5 times faster than the leading brand and helps prevent future buildup. Feel the difference with new Lipo Earwax Cleanser.
Ever wished you could brew your own beer, but figured it was too complicated, too messy, too much effort? Well, now you can. Meet Pinter, the home beer system everyone's talking about. Fresh beer, brewed and tapped by you. No fuss, no guesswork, just brew, chill, tap, done. You can craft 12 pints with every brew. Crisp lager, juicy and hoppy IPAs, smooth stouts, plus brew beers from top craft breweries you know and love. From the first tap to the last toast, hosting just got an upgrade. Nothing beats sharing your own fresh beer with friends. You don't need a garage brewery. You don't need a chemistry set. You just need a Pinter. Right now, get your Pinter free when you join our flexible beer plan. Choose your beers, brew fresh at home, and tap into the world's best beer experience. Free Pinter. Freshly brewed beer. Zero fuss. Go to pinter.com/spring to claim your offer today.
All right, to a Tuesday, let's do some gun stuff. Trump's DOJ taking direct aim, dare I say, at Colorado's gun control agenda, suing both the state and the city of Denver over what it calls blatant violations of the Second Amendment, which they are. The administration says Denver's so-called assault weapons, not a thing, ban. The Colorado's magazine restrictions target firearms and accessories owned by millions of law-abiding Americans, and now the Civil Rights Division is fighting back in court. The woman leading the charge, Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the DOJ, Harmeet Dhillon. All right, we've had you on a couple times. We've got a bunch of stuff going on. Colorado, they say you can't have them. You say yes. I agree with you.
Well, absolutely. So Denver and Colorado have two different restrictions that we've, as you say, taken aim at. In the case of Denver, they have this, fake term called assault weapons, and they use that to slant the public against a most commonly owned rifle in the United States. For example, the AR-15 is banned by this unlawful restriction. And the Supreme Court has made clear that commonly owned weapons that are used by law-abiding citizens for legal purposes are presumptively legal under the Second Amendment. So that is why we sued Denver. And then the following day, we sued Colorado for its similar use of semantics, saying that they're banning large capacity magazines. Well, Carl, the large capacity magazines in question are actually the standard issue magazines for many of these firearms. And so they are effectively outlawing so many millions of weapons that are used lawfully by United States citizens. So, I mean, you're effectively outlawing all AR-15s and other semi-automatic rifles. If you can't use a large magazine with them, what is the point? And then secondly, even popular handguns like the Glock 17 is not usable when you have a 15 magazine capacity restriction.
Yeah.
And so this is really a backdoor way of banning these firearms that are popular and lawful, and we won't stand for it at the Department of Justice.
I mean, look, I'm not a Glock guy. I'm a SIG guy to the bone. However, Virginia is going to sign this law to ban Glocks. Connecticut already signed this law to ban Glocks. And I always said if they can ban AR-15s, they can ban any gun they want, and here they are. And Grant v. Lamont, which is the Connecticut version of what you got going on in Colorado, has been relisted for the 12th time by the Supreme Court. They haven't said no, but there's Maryland, California, Colorado now, I believe it's Virginia, and a couple other states, Illinois, that are all saying you can't own AR-15s in these states, and they've all been sued, and it's all waiting to be heard. Why can't the Supreme Court just do this?
Well, I'll tell you why. It's very simple, and one reason when people beat up on me for not going after the nutbag states, Connecticut's laws, and the reason is we already have a ruling out of the First Circuit in that jurisdiction. So for purposes of Supreme Court jurisprudence, they don't really need multiple cases from a particular jurisdiction or circuit to be able to tee it up for a circuit split. That's the best way to get a case to the Supreme Court. And so what we've been doing at the DOJ is targeting those jurisdictions like Colorado, where there is no ruling in the circuit court. So in that case, the 10th Circuit. I've also argued this particular issue in the 7th Circuit. We're waiting for a ruling for almost a year now over there. And I know it's frustrating, but we don't need this case to be determined and taken up by the Supreme Court for every state. We need the United States Supreme Court to decide the issue. And I think that is absolutely going to happen. It's going to happen soon. We're doing our part at the DOJ to shepherd that along. And, in addition to, the ones that we've done so far, we just filed the first of its kind lawsuit by the United States in D.C. where we amended our attack on their assault weapons, so-called assault weapons ban, by also taking on their suppressor ban in the District of Columbia for law-abiding citizens. So I just heard from a state attorney general earlier today, Harmeet, you need to go a step further. Yes, step by step, we are going to take these things on, but there's a process and there's a method to our way of doing things.
Well, I can't think of a better person to have in your position right now, Harmeet. We appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Coming up, the flailing governor of Minnesota spends Memorial Day dancing for, no, not veterans, George Floyd, and bailing on the heroes. All that and more. Culture Clash.
Everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.
Your neighbor just paid an enormous amount for a new roof, but he didn't have to, and neither do you. Because RoofMax can add years of life to your current roof.
Here's how you know you have a problem with your roof. Black streaking, your roof looks rough, or granules shedding off into your gutters or showing up in your driveway. Your roof is wearing out too fast, and it's going to cost you a bundle. RoofMax makes your roof like new by strengthening and rejuvenating it.
Get your roof treated now, but pay later, with no payments for a full year.
250 years ago, a nation was forged by grit, by courage, by freedom. Today, we raise a glass to that same spirit. 4547 Strait Bourbon Whiskey, the 250th Anniversary Edition. Bold, independent, unmistakably American. Toast to independence this year. Built by patriots, for patriots. Order yours today.
Planning that perfect family vacation? Turns out, the fix is right here. Create new lifetime memories from the comfort of your backyard. No passports, no reservations. Latham's premium handcrafted pools can be installed in weeks. Our pools won't stain or crack and never require costly resurfacing. And with our crystal finish, you can bring your favorite exotic watercolor and shimmer right to your own backyard. Summer installation is still possible. Visit lathampool.com today.
The name's Hampton. I've come a long way from my Humpty days and have learned a thing or two about crashes and falls. That's why I invest with Willow Wealth. They make it easy to diversify my portfolio with private markets. Plus, portfolios including private markets have outperformed traditional ones for the past 20 years. Not that it's a competition. Diversify your portfolio to help rise above public market volatility and level up your game. Those who know, know. Willow Wealth.
The biggest selection of plants and trees. Perfect for your yard. That's what FastGrowingTrees.com delivers. And every tree comes with our Live and Thrive guarantee. Get the plants you want and the results you'll love. Save now at FastGrowingTrees.com.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
if you were to just frame out an example of how stupid MSNBC or MS Now or whatever it is, this is it. On Memorial Day, a day that you saw, obviously weighed pretty heavy on me, the network decide that this is the best guy. The best guy that they had on was the Nazi tattoo guy who denigrated the service of heroes like Chris Kyle or Teddy Daniels, who he had on yesterday. They invite Plattner on to talk about socialisming America. Watch this.
There's absolutely no question that if we target the wealth where it has been hoarded, frankly, for decades at this point, and we pull it back into our system and put it into social programs like healthcare, like childcare, like paying teachers what they are worth, we will absolutely improve the lives of working Americans and, quite frankly, improve our society as a whole.
Yes, every time we throw money at government, it makes it better, right? Thankfully, there appears to be at least one Democrat who is not impressed by this guy and who has at least a little bit of integrity.
I've been clear about Graham Plattner. I find that tattoo and his commentary about it to be personally disqualifying. I hope Maine voters agree with me.
Newsmax contributor Kay Smythe and host of Tony Katz Today, Tony Katz. I mean, Kay, I can't think of a better Memorial Day special to put on that guy who denigrates and hopes that veterans die.
Yeah, well, firstly, Carl, thank you for your service. And you know, I thought I would see Bernie Sanders do some kind of crazy things in my life, but sitting next to that guy was not on the list. And sitting next to that guy on Memorial Day weekend, I mean, yeah, I'm like you. I never thought that I would agree with a Democrat on anything ever again after living in a Democrat state when I used to live in California. But I do. I agree with the chap that you just had on. I think that the tattoo is disqualifying. I think his commentary on it is disqualifying. And I think that his total and utter disrespect for the men and women who've kept America, quite frankly, is also disqualifying.
Yeah.
But there we go. That's the new Democrat
he falls
Party
back
for
on
you.
the fact that he did, 4 trips over to the sandbox, and he says that, well, that gives me the right to say whatever I want, but Democrats just have this double standard. All right, so this is the disgraced Minnesota governor, Tim Walz, Tony, being called out. He was attending a memorial for the drug overdosing criminal George Floyd. Now, Walz was dancing for George Floyd, but skipping out on an event to honor heroes for Memorial Day, which is odd for a guy who ran for vice president on his military record that he was actually lying about.
Well, I don't think he ran for vice president on his military record at all. He ran for vice president because they decided to skip over the Jewish guy and Josh Shapiro. That's why he was the pick to begin with. It's in the books. It's understood. But this George Floyd love affair that exists. This is what happens when you have a rabid base that you cultivated, you created. This is the monster of Frankenstein, and the monster must feed. And if you don't give it the food that it wants, which is radical progressivism, leftism, socialism, communism at all times, you end up being destroyed. You take a look at Representative Auchincloss, who you're just talking about right there. This is not a guy I'm a fan of on any level. All he said is the guy with the Nazi tattoo is a bridge too far, and he's getting ripped apart, including from the guy who helped run AOC's first campaign. You can't vote for this guy. This is terrible. He should be primaried. For one statement not within the progressive radical mainstream.
Yeah.
That is a broken party.
Yeah, Kay, I saved this one for you. Speaking of beta males, check out this tweet from the Daily Mail. It says, YMCA in Liberal City finally cracks down on the new rules after trans woman exposes pre-op privates in a female locker room. And the community notes came in for this one and said, that's called a penis.
And I don't know why that guy, that man, that biological man with severe mental health issues is allowed in a women's locker room, especially the YMCA. I'm a member of the YMCA. I'm a member of my local YMCA, and this is the South. And if they let a man in that locker room, I guarantee every single woman, everyone at that YMCA would walk out, and it would be obliterated overnight. Like it would just disappear.
100%.
It would just disappear. It is just, it makes my teeth itchy and my brain hurt to think that A, the Daily Mail wrote a headline like that. That's embarrassing for the Daily Mail. B, the YMCA is going to do anything about this.
No.
I'm actually genuinely impressed that they did. I mean, maybe, I don't know, the YMCA is pretty good at
they're not
really
going to
no
do
trousers.
it. Yep. Tony Okay, wish I had more time. We appreciate it so much. All right, coming up, stats don't lie, but the legacy media does. How they created selective outrage over black people being killed. Details next.
Immuno 50 may be the best food supplement in the world because it contains 70 plant minerals and 80 other nutrients. The 3 videos on our website tell you how this product and 7 times more minerals can improve your health.
Your plumbing leaks, your AC goes out, your washing machine breaks down. When it happens, don't panic. One call and we handle it all. Surround your home's major systems and appliances with peace of mind. With Choice Home Warranty, you can finally have peace of mind and protection for costly repairs and replacements.
It eliminates anxiety, frustration, and it saves you money. I recommend using Choice Home Warranty.
Choice Home Warranty covers the repair and replacement of over 25 key systems and appliances. If one breaks down, it won't break the bank getting it repaired or replaced.
Things will break down, so that's why you definitely need Choice Home Warranty service to give you the peace of mind of knowing that they will solve your issue.
Every system and appliance will need repair at some point. With over 100,000 five-star customer reviews raving about our service, Choice Home Warranty is always ready when you need us.
We've been with Choice Home Warranty for over 7 years because it's been easy, it's been affordable, and they take care of everything that we need.
Call right now to get your special phone deal. Plus, ask how you can get your first month free. There's no home inspection, no commitment, and you can cancel anytime. Join more than 2.4 million homes nationwide who have protected their home with Choice. And Choice has a huge nationwide network of trusted technicians. Surround your home systems and appliances and yourself with the award-winning company that's been named the best home warranty company and best claim service. They are available 24/7, and every Choice Home Warranty plan covers repairs and replacements.
When the appliance breaks down, you need the security of a home warranty, and for me, it's Choice Home Warranty.
Call Choice Home Warranty now and learn about special phone pricing only available today. Plus, ask how you can get your first month free.
Call 800-211-0878. That's 800-211-0878. Call now.
Honey, Mortgage Money 6 says we should keep renting.
Mortgage Money 6?
Reba says more realtor agents recommend Realtor.com. They track every market so you know when to make your move.
He also says that Bigfoot... Got it.
Make it real with Realtor.com.
For pain in multiple spots like here, here, or here, Salon Pass patches stick firmly and remove comfortably once your pain is gone. Salon Pass. It's good medicine.
Immuno 50 may be the best food supplement in the world because it contains 70 plant minerals and 80 other nutrients. The 3 videos on our website tell you how this product and 7 times more minerals can improve your health.
So I saw this crazy statistic over this past Memorial Day weekend that more people were shot in Chicago than were killed during this entire Iran conflict. This comes on the back of that tweet that I told you about yesterday, that the DNC wanted to honor those killed in Trump's Iran war, using it for political gain. The DNC took that down, by the way, because it was terrible. I just can't help but notice the irony in the gun-controlled Chicago has with this crazy high shooting rate. All these people are the same ones who rushed to honor George Floyd, as we were just talking about, because he was, they say, an unarmed black man killed by police officers. Yet these goons say nothing about black people killing other black people in record numbers in their state. They're doing nothing to stop it. And I think it comes down to a perception issue. So I started doing a little bit of digging, going down that rabbit hole. Liberals think that white cops shoot unarmed black people at like genocidal rates, which is not even remotely true. The most comprehensive data we actually have was from right after the George Floyd incident, where he died of a fentanyl overdose, and then they sent a police officer to jail for restraining him after resisting arrest. But that's a whole nother issue. Check out this chart right here. As you can see, I know this is a little complicated, but people who identify as very liberal, note that 42% believe about 100 unarmed black men were killed by police in 2021. Almost 30% of very liberal people believe that 1,000 were killed by white police officers, and 12% believe that police officers murdered 10,000 or more black men just in the year of 2021. Do you know what the actual number is? The actual number of unarmed black men being killed by police officers was 11. 11! The propaganda game is so strong from these race baiters that it convinced over 85% of liberals to have completely incorrect data. This is why I always say, don't trust the media. Not even me. Go, if you like something I say, don't like something I say. Go research, which is exactly what people at CNN don't want you to do your own research.
But this go-it-alone approach, doing your own research, it seems so innocent, but it can have serious consequences.
Like people knowing the truth. Now, I know this is going to throw people for a loop on the left. You at home probably won't be surprised by this, but when you scroll to the other end of that chart, under the people who identify as very conservative, the number that we believe is far more accurate, which is 15% of very liberal people got the question right. Almost 50% of conservatives got the correct answer. But my other concern is that 50% were very, very wrong because of the propaganda game. Oh, and of the 11 shootings of unarmed black men by police officers, 10 were actually found to be justified. Much like Michael Brown, who was technically unarmed but reached for the officer's gun through his squad car window. If you recall, it started a nationwide movement of hands up, don't shoot, which he never actually did after he robbed a convenience store. Only one unarmed black man was shot by police officers in the wake of George Floyd that wasn't justified. This is why the riots ensued, because of one. Because elected officials go out there and they say the craziest stuff that just, it's not true, and they think they know it.
We have a long and wretched and disturbing history in this country of black people being murdered by law enforcement.
I would argue that legalized genocide, when you think about how the very laws that are supposed to protect us are being used to kill us.
I guess my only question is, if the death of black men is such a travesty, why is it not being addressed when they're killed by other black men? Look, here's some hard statistics. Whites killed 246 black people in the same year, but black people killed 566 white people in the same year, more than twice as many. But black people killed 2,574 fellow black people in the same year. So the narrative kind of falls apart. A black person is actually 10 times more likely to be killed by another black person than they are to be killed by a white person, or especially not a cop. Yet if you watch the legacy media, you would think that there's some epidemic. It's also worth noting that the Washington Post noted that over 1,000 police officer killings of the same year, where 802 were the only ones that recorded the race of the police officer and the suspect, 371 of those killed were white, and only 236 were black, with almost all not unarmed except for one. So when some lib tells me that, oh, misinformation is dangerous, and then they proceed to support George Floyd, well, their misinformation caused $2.1 billion worth of damage to our cities because they're either uninformed or intentionally misleading people to riot on behalf of a criminal who died of a drug overdose, a guy who reached for an officer's gun, or a guy who illegally selling cigarettes who resisted arrest. I mean, who's the bigger danger to society? Police officers or Democrats? All right, before we go, how annoyed do you get when you got to change the clocks twice a year? Well, things might be changing. Next.
Closed captioning by America Tax Group. Stop IRS and state collections. Free consultation. Call now.
America Tax Group is the nation's leading tax firm that has helped millions of taxpayers resolve penalties, remove liens, and stop wage garnishments. If you're dealing with IRS or state tax issues, don't wait. Call now.
You're told to optimize, to hack. There's always a promise of a better you. But what if you were never meant to be fixed? Your biology knows how to thrive. It just needs a reminder. Armor Colostrum reawakens that brilliance. 400 nutrients, 4 seconds, 1 daily revival. This time, remember what you're made of.
Sir, he's here to see you.
So, are you ready to join forces? PCMag provides complete protection for your computer and smartphone against malware and ransomware, and it's 100% American-made and supported security.
Today, Cyberman and his unknown partner delivered a massive victory, protecting homes, businesses, and federal devices from ransomware.
Get protected now at PCMatic.com.
It's 2 a.m., your fever spiked, and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed. And you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
All the plants your yard needs, without the hassle. That's what FastGrowingTrees.com delivers. From privacy and fruit trees to shrubs, flowering trees, houseplants, and more. Straight to your door. Fast Growing Trees has more plants than you'll find at a garden center. And every tree comes with our Alive and Thrive guarantee. Get the plants you want and the results you'll love at FastGrowingTrees.com. Save now on your best yard.
It's in every hug, every laugh, every keepsake passed down. Our legacy lives in the little things, a thread of love, wisdom, and strength that connects us all. With the security to grow, these moments become more than memories. They become lasting gifts for generations to come. It's time to take care of your wealth, your legacy, and your family with trusted guidance to invest in the links that last. Talk to our dedicated team at Siebert Financial.
Nobody knows Corvettes like McMulkin Chevrolet, the world's largest Corvette dealer for 5 consecutive years. Set apart by its name alone, Corvette delivers a legacy of American craftsmanship, and a vehicle that sets the bar for performance cars deserves a buying experience that beats it. With hundreds of Corvettes in stock and ready for immediate delivery nationwide, it's no wonder Corvette enthusiasts from across the USA keep coming back to McMulkin Chevrolet.
Yes, looks like President Trump is trying to get rid of the useless tradition of switching our clocks 2 times a year. The Sunshine Protection Act is gaining traction on the Senate floor, getting 48 yays and 1 no during a test vote. So hopefully we're going to get this, but it wasn't always like that. The time we're currently observing now might actually stay. Daylight savings time began as satire when Ben Franklin suggested the French could save 64 million pounds of candle wax by waking up at dawn, proposing taxing window shutters and firing cannons at sunrise to ruse the public up. But during World War I, the Standard Time Act was passed, enacting a trial run of daylight savings. After the war, farmers were forced they forced a repeal of it because it was messing up all their natural work schedules. Now, during World War II, FDR put the country on year-round wartime, which sparked all kinds of clock chaos. Congress fixed the mess in 1966 with synchronizing dates, but a disastrous 1974 attempt at year-round daylight savings was quickly aborted because kids were commuting to school in darkness. So, I mean, Schmidt, this seems like not really a tradition. Let's just dump it.
Yeah, well, I mean, they say it's for the farmers. I guess I have some sympathies there, but I mean, for everybody else, when that thing rolls back in November, I mean, when it's dark at 4:30 in the afternoon in this town, I mean, it's just like, you're killing me here. I would love to just leave it right where it is, right now. I like it right here. Carl, good to see you.
My man.
All right.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.